In the small coastal village of Palanas, the sea was not just a body of water, it was the lifeblood of the community. For generations, its rhythms dictated the daily lives of the people. They understood its moods, its generosity, and its limits. Fishermen would set out at dawn, their small boats dotting the horizon like scattered leaves, returning with just enough to feed their families and sell at the local market. It was a life of simple, honest work, built on a foundation of respect for the ocean that sustained them. The sea gave, and the people took, but they always took with care, knowing that the future of their children depended on this delicate balance. Then, a new sound echoed across the calm waters, a sound that promised a quicker, easier path to prosperity. It was the thunderous boom of dynamite. At first, the results were astonishing, almost magical. A single blast could bring to the surface a massive haul of fish, far more than a day's work with a net and line could ever yield. The men who used it became heroes of a sort, their boats returning to shore laden with silver scales, their pockets full. The village buzzed with excitement and newfound wealth. It seemed like a miracle, a shortcut to a better life that bypassed the patient toil of their ancestors. The lure of this instant abundance was intoxicating. More and more fishermen abandoned their traditional methods, seduced by the easy profits. The village market, once filled with the quiet chatter of commerce, now hummed with a frantic energy. Money flowed more freely than ever before. People bought new things, repaired their homes, and dreamt of a future free from hardship. The dynamite's roar became a daily drumbeat of progress, a symbol of their triumph over the old ways. They believed they had outsmarted the sea, unlocking its treasures with a flick of a switch and a deafening explosion. But this new prosperity was a fragile illusion, built on a foundation of destruction. The villagers, in their haste for more, failed to see the true cost of their actions. They saw only the shimmering fish floating to the surface, not the devastation left behind on the seafloor. The explosions were not just killing the fish they wanted, they were annihilating everything in their path. The delicate coral reefs, the nurseries for young fish, the tiny organisms that formed the base of the entire marine food web, all were being systematically pulverized into a lifeless, barren wasteland. The sea was being wounded, and soon its wounds would begin to show. The connection between the people of Palanas and the sea was deeper than they knew. The ocean was not merely a resource to be exploited, it was a living, breathing system, and the village was an inseparable part of it. The vibrant coral reefs were the heart of this system, providing shelter and food for countless species. These reefs were the architects of the village's very existence, protecting the coastline from storms and nurturing the fish that fed the people. For generations, this interconnectedness was understood, not in scientific terms, but through a deep, intuitive respect. This bond was a moral contract, an unspoken promise to care for the source of their life. The dynamite blast began to sever this ancient bond. With each explosion, a piece of this underwater paradise died. The brilliantly colored corals, which had taken centuries to grow, were shattered into grey rubble in seconds. The intricate web of life they supported collapsed. The smaller fish and invertebrates vanished, and with them, the larger fish that preyed on them. The sea, once teeming with diversity, was growing quiet and desolate. The fishermen had to travel further and further out, using more and more dynamite, just to find a fraction of what they once caught so easily close to shore. The ocean's response was not immediate or dramatic. It was a slow, creeping decline, a silent suffering that went unnoticed amidst the daily booms and the counting of money. The water near the shore grew cloudy, the vibrant colors of the shallows fading to a murky brown. The children who once played among tidal pools filled with life now found only empty shells and sterile sand. The sea was becoming a stranger to them, a barren place to be feared rather than loved. The villagers' short-term gains were blinding them to the long-term catastrophe they were creating for themselves and for all living things that depended on the reef. This destruction was a betrayal of a sacred trust. It was an act of profound greed that ignored the fundamental truth that all life is connected. By harming the sea, the people of Palanas were ultimately harming themselves. They were poisoning their own well, destroying the very foundation of their culture, their economy, and their future. The vibrant ecosystem was not just a collection of plants and animals, it was a community, and its health was directly tied to the moral choices of the human community living on its shores. The silent suffering of the sea was a reflection of a sickness in the human heart. In every community, there are voices of caution, those who remember the old ways and see the dangers of a reckless new path. In Palanas, that voice belonged to Manong Isko, one of the eldest and most respected fishermen. He had never joined the rush for dynamite, continuing to use his simple net and line. He watched the growing wealth with a heavy heart, seeing not progress, but a dangerous gamble. He saw the shrinking catches, the cloudy water, and the fear in the eyes of the sea creatures. He understood that the technology of dynamite, a tool of immense power, was being used improperly, leading his community down a path of self-destruction. Manong Isko tried to warn his fellow villagers. He spoke not with anger, but with the quiet wisdom of experience. He told stories of his father and grandfather, of how they had always treated the sea with respect, ensuring it would provide for generations to come. He explained that the coral reefs were like the foundations of their homes. If they were destroyed, the entire house would eventually collapse. His words, however, were often dismissed. They were seen as the ramblings of an old man, out of touch with the new reality of quick and easy profits. The allure of immediate gain was too strong to overcome. The turning point came not with a whisper, but with a tragedy. A young fisherman, eager to impress his family, mishandled the dynamite. The resulting explosion was catastrophic, taking his life and destroying his small boat. The shock of this event rippled through the village, a brutal reminder of the inherent dangers of their new methods. The loss was personal and profound. It wasn't just a fisherman who was lost. It was a son, a husband, and a friend. The once celebrated boom of dynamite now sounded like a death knell, echoing the community's shared grief and regret. The short-term gain had exacted its ultimate price. In the wake of this tragedy, the villagers began to listen to Manong Isko. His steadfast adherence to the old ways no longer seemed stubborn, but wise. His choices had set an example, a quiet protest against the tide of greed. He showed them that true wealth was not measured in the haul of a single day, but in the sustained health of the sea. The leader's actions, or in his case, his refusal to act, had a profound impact. Manong Isko's quiet integrity became a beacon, guiding the community away from the destructive path they had chosen and toward a moment of collective reckoning and a chance for change. The tragedy served as a harsh awakening. The people of Palanas could no longer ignore the consequences of their actions. The ocean, which they had pushed to its limits, had finally pushed back, not with malice, but with the inevitable outcome of their destructive behavior. Nature, personified in the wounded sea, had shown them that its laws cannot be broken without consequence. The empty nets, the barren reefs, and the loss of a young life were all part of the same story. The villagers began to understand that they were not masters of nature, but a part of it, and their survival depended on living in harmony with it. A profound sense of empathy began to grow in the community. They saw the pain in the eyes of the family who had lost their son, and in that pain, they saw their own vulnerability. They began to tell their stories of loss, not just of human life, but of the life that had vanished from the sea. They remembered the joy of seeing dolphins play near the shore, the brilliant colors of the fish that once filled their nets, and the taste of a truly fresh catch. These shared memories and regrets forged a new sense of unity, one based not on profit, but on a shared responsibility to heal what they had broken. Led by Manong Isko, the village made a collective decision to change. They outlawed dynamite fishing completely. It was a difficult choice, as it meant returning to the harder, more patient work of the past. The path to recovery would be long and slow. They started planting mangrove forests along the coast to protect it and provide new nurseries for fish. They established a marine sanctuary over the most damaged parts of the reef, allowing it time to slowly recover without human interference. These actions were not just practical, they were acts of penance, a way of showing respect to the sea they had so grievously harmed. This story of Palanas ends not in despair, but with a message of hope. It is a powerful parable about the consequences of greed and the importance of foresight. It teaches us that true prosperity is not about quick profit, but about sustainability and respect for the natural world. The healing of the sea in Palanas began with the healing of the community's heart, with the rediscovery of empathy and the understanding that we are all connected. Their journey is a call to all of us to listen to the warnings of nature, to act with wisdom, and to protect the fragile, beautiful planet that is our only home.